Brian Windhorst joins the desk. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that it's been a long series for you. And
a short night.
And a short night, but no one sleeps here. We don't want to hear about all of that. We're going to talk about LeBron James, and as we've mentioned when you come on the desk, you know him probably better than any other at the desk at the moment since you've covered him since he was in high school. Skip, you want to start off and ask a couple questions?
Brian wrote another insightful piece on LeBron that's up on ESPN.com today. The premise being that earlier in his career, if I might paraphrase, LeBron just couldn't shoot a lick, especially up through the 06 finals against the Spurs when they were swept. I believe he was 4 for 20 from 3 in that series. Yet, with the help of his shot coach, Chris Gent, working summer after summer, vacation after vacation, shooting a million shots, he has taught himself not only to shoot pretty well, to shoot the lights out, especially this regular season. And then finally, in his first finals game 7 last night, he shot the lights out on the Spurs. Expand on that concept.
I just think that there was a full circleness to this happening against the Spurs last night. And in a way, the Spurs brought about their own demise.
Yep.
Because you have to understand where he was emotionally when he lost, when they got swept back in 2007 to the Spurs. He was devastated. You know, that was a great playoff run for him. He had the game in Detroit, that series in Detroit, and it was supposed to be like a coronation. And that even when they lost, it was, you know, it was like, okay, you were the underdog, you'll be back. But LeBron was so embarrassed. I mean, I remember back when LeBron's first 4 or 5 years in the league, he would change his shot motion in December.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'd jump this high on three-pointers for like no reason. One night LeBron would come out and just take set shots on threes. And you're like, why? Why are you taking a set shot on a three all of a sudden? He was all over the place. And so Chris Gent was the guy. Chris Gent, you may remember, is from New Jersey, played with the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yep.
Used to dive all over the floor, actually got a ring with the Houston Rockets. He was the Cavs development coach, and he said, okay, Chris, we're going to work. And Chris got on the plane with him and went to his vacations, and Chris went with him to his commercial shoots, and LeBron had this rule. If you wanted to do business with LeBron, no matter what it was, you had to build in court time. Whether you were in Guangzhou, China, or you were in L.A., or you were in Akron, he had to have time every single day to shoot. And he's been doing that for years. And that shooting percentage just kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And one of the most amazing things I think about LeBron, look at all of his accomplishments and his stats and everything, he's improved his shooting percentage 6 consecutive years. You would think there's a critical mass. You can't, you can only improve so much. 56% this year, 41% on three-point shooting, which I know is not, at a level of like a Steve Kerr. But he was a 28% three-point shooter as a rookie. He's increased it by such a huge amount. And so last night, he could have won the game a different way. He could have won the game by going to the basket, and it would have been just as great a performance. But to win that game, chopping the Spurs game plan, that they basically used the same game plan 6 years ago, chopping it down, showing how much he's improved as a player under pressure. And to be honest with you, Skip, that shot you mentioned earlier, that shot that he hit with 27 seconds left, 2-point game, game 7, might be the clutchest shot he's hit in his career.
It's got to be. I completely concur.
End of the shot clock, right there, make or miss. He made it.
No hesitation. We talked about how he was occasionally tentative in the previous losses to the Spurs. Nope. He just pulled straight up, and it was a sweep motion. It was a pure, solid, trustworthy sort of motion, and it was nothing but net.
Built on year after year, and not just Chris Gent, because Chris Gent's been an assistant at Ohio State for a few years, and now he's, I think, coming back to the NBA with Sacramento. But when he got to Miami, Eric Spoelstra said, okay, LeBron, you've worked on your shot, but let's talk about where you shoot from. I mean, how do you get from being a 50% shooter to being a 56% shooter? Well, you take shots from here and here, but not here. And that's what LeBron knew, and that last possession came down to everything he's worked in. He knew that was the spot he had to get to, because he could get to that spot and he could make the shot from that spot. And all of that was the 6 years he's put in since the Spurs basically slapped him across the face and said, you're not that good.
Yeah, but I get you. Obviously, you would know what I need to be crystallized for me, however, is that there were times in this series where that was not the case, where he wasn't making those shots, and there were other times where I said he was tentative. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, how did he go from that to a Game 7 when he was looking and didn't mind taking those kind of shots? Based on everything you've highlighted about his history, what moment got him to that moment?
I think Greg Popovich looked at the stats and said the best game plan on LeBron is the same as it was 6 years ago. Back off and play him. And LeBron hadn't been played that way for a while. And it got it. He didn't have success right away, and it bothered him. And he said last night, I had to go back and look at the stats. And look, 56%. 46% on shots from 16 to 23 feet. I mean, that's
during the regular season.
During the regular season. That's Stephen Curry type numbers.
Sure.
I know Stephen Curry is probably the best shooter we got going right now.
Yes, he is. Without question.
Stephen Curry's not that much better from that range. My point is, LeBron had to be reminded, I'm just as good from that range as anybody else on the planet. And
16 to 20. 16 to
20, 16 to 23.
23, yeah.
And he had to realize that was a good shot for him. And he did struggle. And it's not. Dunking is natural to him. Driving down the lane and throwing the ball up with his left hand and banking it high off the glass is natural to him. Shooting was not natural. So whereas Stephen Curry, when the pressure comes on, his thing is, I'm going to go take that jumper. Right. When the pressure comes on LeBron, he fights it because it's something he had to go to a learned exercise. But he's put in the work, and he had to remind himself, I've put in the work, I can do it. And he did it when it mattered, and it went in.
Psychologically, how much did Dwayne Wade's performance in the first half help him?
I think it was huge. And LeBron said last night, there was a play where Dwayne challenged Tim Duncan at the rim. And Tim Duncan won. Tim Duncan got the block. But just that Dwayne was going to go to the rim, was going to attack and give everything he got, I think energized his teammates. Dwayne had those couple of blocks early on in the game. Had 10 rebounds, I think he had. You could tell he was playing. And I think when you've got LeBron and Dwayne playing like that, and when you've got him making shots, Dwayne hit some mid-range jumpers. They're really hard to beat. That's what you want him to do if you're the other team. That's hard to beat.
Okay, back to your original point. Brian, in the 3 losses to the Spurs, outside the paint, LeBron was 6 of 29. That's 21%. So I cannot fault Greg Popovich for saying last night, okay, let's just live or die with this. Dare him to shoot. And again, Pop, a couple times from the bench, was waving to Kawhi or Boris, whoever's on him, just hang back in the lane. Just absolutely dare him. Don't even get a hand in his face. And if he makes them, we lose.
Greg Popovich, I think, had a great game plan for this series. It got his team, which talent-wise I think was the underdog. Yeah. It got him to Game 7. They probably should have won it. So I can understand why Greg Popovich was going to stick with the game plan that got him to that point. And it was just LeBron having more in the reservoir, having more in the reserve that he didn't have before.
Ironically, it wasn't Greg Popovich's strategy defensively, I believe, that cost San Antonio this series. It was some of the questionable strategies he had offensively.
Well, I think if you look at the stats, LeBron averaged 25 points a game in this series. Now, he did average 10 rebounds and 7 assists, but 25 points you can live with. Sure. I think all in all.
I'll buy that. Also,
I think he only shot 45%. So what we just said, he shot 56% in the regular season. A lot of that's helped by those transition baskets and those going to the rim. They held him to 45%. So I think if Greg Popovich right now would say, you know what, our defensive game plan worked, but their defensive game plan is not as sound as it was 6 years ago because LeBron is so much better of a player.
Brian Windhorst, thank you for layering the debate and giving us some more insight.
Appreciate it, man. Great work as always.
Great work. Get some rest because I think you may be tired. I'm not for sure.
My voice is about gone.